There I was, a man hiding in our house for a few weeks. Okay, I want to start by saying, this actually happened. This isn't some creepy story or something I made up. I still have trouble sleeping alone because of it. Even now, years later at 27, I check every closet and lock every door at least 3 times before bed. So yeah, here's why I don't stay home alone anymore. I was 16, almost 17F, living with my mom and my little brother Ryan, like 7 at the time. My mom worked night shifts at a nursing home, so I was usually the one watching Ryan when she was gone. Since he was younger, he'd be asleep by 8, and I'd just do my thing. Watch TV, scroll on my phone, eat junk food. You know, typical teenager stuff. We lived in this little 1-story house on the edge of some woods. It wasn't totally isolated, but there weren't many neighbors nearby either. I used to love having the house to myself at night, until all of this happened. So, the first time I noticed something weird, it was small. I was in bed around 11 p.m., scrolling through my phone, when I heard this shuffling sound, like someone dragging their feet on the carpet. I froze. Ryan was asleep. My mom wasn't home. I sat there, holding my breath, listening. It was quiet for a few seconds, and then I heard it again. A soft scuffing noise, like someone was moving real slowly through the living room. I grabbed my phone and crept out of my room, my heart pounding. I checked the front door, locked. The windows, locked. Nothing looked out of place. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The hall closet was open, just a crack. We never left that door open, ever. I stood there for a second, my whole body on edge. I wanted to just turn around and go back to my room, but my dumb ass decided to check. I pulled the door open fast. Nothing, just coats and shoes. I remember laughing at myself. I was just being paranoid. Still, I locked the closet door before I went back to bed. A few nights later, I woke up out of nowhere. At first, I didn't know why. Then I realized I could hear breathing. I was laying there completely still, my whole body locked up in fear. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside my room. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and turned on the flashlight. I shined it around. Nothing. The room was empty. The closet was closed. I barely slept the rest of the night. After that, I started feeling weird all the time. Like I was being watched. Like whenever I turned my back, someone was just out of sight, peeking around a corner. I told my mom, but she just brushed it off. Then, about a week later, she woke me up after coming home early from work. She looked off. She asked me why the back door was unlocked, and I assured her I'd locked it, and she told me it was unlocked, and she just had to lock it. I knew, without a doubt, that I had locked it the night before, but I didn't argue. That night, I was on edge. I kept my bedroom door locked and my phone in my hand, just in case. I woke out to do more breathing, and just that gut feeling that someone's watching you. My whole body went cold. I sat up, barely breathing, and listened. I noticed my closet door was open, which was also weird. I turned on my flashlight just in time to see it swing open another inch. And that's when I saw him. I swear to you, there was a man crouched inside my closet. Skin pale as hell, hair greasy and matted. He was too thin, like he hadn't eaten in weeks, and he was grinning at me. I don't even remember getting out of bed. 1 second I was staring at him. The next I was slamming my door shut and running to Ryan's room. Ryan woke up crying as I grabbed him and ran out of the house, my phone already dialing 911. The cops got there fast. They found him still in my closet. Turns out, he had been living in our crawl space for weeks. He had gotten in through a loose vent in the basement and had been sneaking into the house at night, watching us sleep, taking food when we weren't looking. But the worst part? When they pulled him out, they found something tucked behind my coats. A knife. The police said he was probably waiting for the right moment. I try not to think about what would have happened if I hadn't woken up that night. I swear this actually happened, and it fucks with me to this day. So to the man in my closet, let's never ever meet again. The creep at the campsite. It was 2020. COVID had just started. The boyfriend I thought I would spend the rest of my life with had broken up with me. So what did I decide would be the next best move? A solo, 5,000-mile road trip in my 2000 Buick LeSabre. Drained my bank account. Only told a few friends. Seemed appropriate. Now that road trip was its own journey, but I'll try and keep it short by saying I had already driven from WA to ID to WY to CO to AZ to UT, got some new tires in a town called Beaver, to OR, and was back in Idaho. I had been camping by myself for almost 2 weeks at this point. I'm a fairly experienced hiker and camper. I had a campsite reserved in the Clearwater National Forest in Idaho 2 nights before I was supposed to return home. Took the world's most beautiful drive out there, but after seeing how remote it was and how I was supposed to be back home soon, I was kind of camped out. I was about 30 minutes out from the campsite and decided to not test my luck and just turn around. I drove for hours out of that forest to get back to familiar territory, Washington. Now, by the time I had made it into Washington, it was well into midnight. I was in a town called Spokane. I was exhausted and didn't have a reservation anywhere to sleep, and decided to try and drive out to a walk-up campsite. Well, as I said, I was tired, so I didn't think about the gate being closed to the campsite. I pull up in the pitch dark, and there's obviously no way for me to get in, and I realize what my poor planning has done to me. I go to turn my car around and make other plans, when I turn and my lights shine on a man walking out of the edge of the woods in front of my car. He doesn't seem to be carrying anything. No gear, no bag. He's middle-aged, bald with some stubble. He motions for me to roll down the window. Me, not thinking, I crack it. Now I don't roll it down all the way like I said. I just crack it. And he starts telling me that his wife left to go grab something, but she's supposed to be back soon. That if I could give him a ride instead, that would be great. Yada yada yada. On the bright side, I knew from the start this man was not getting in my car. I kind of tried to ask him some questions about his wife and how he ended up there, but the story was not adding up. If his wife was coming back, why did he need a ride? Where was all his camping gear? Eventually I told him I'm sorry, but I hope his wife comes back soon and I cannot help him. I booked it out of there, found a church, parked in the back of the lot, and put blankets all around my windows and slept in my car. Woke up at 5:30 a.m. and sped off to my next destination, Banks Lake. I promptly finished my previous night's sleep, sunbathing on the beach, with my belongings locked in my car in the middle of the day, lol. I've learned a lot from my travels over the years. That solo journey taught me a lot. I wonder what would have happened to me if I had let that man in my car. I often find it funny that in my 5,000+ mile journey across 7 states, the only place I really felt unsafe was a couple 100 miles from home. Man in the Spokane campsite parking lot around midnight. Let's not meet again. The hike from hell, my real experience of being stalked and how my dog helped me escape. Hi everyone, and thank you for taking the time to read my story. I haven't shared this with many people, but I'm doing so now as part of my healing process. Please note that some details have been changed or omitted for privacy reasons. It's been 3 years since I almost didn't make it out that day. You know how in crime documentaries, survivors often say, "I just had a gut feeling something bad was going to happen"? That's absolutely true. My body froze. My hands trembled so much that I dropped the leash. I knew in that moment it was either me or him, and no one would hear me scream. It was another sweltering summer morning where I live. My partner was away on a business trip, and I was bored and alone. My dog, who I affectionately call my girl, was clearly miserable being stuck indoors all the time. I decided to find a place where we could escape the heat. After a quick search online, I found a spot a couple of hours away that promised to be 30 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than my city. I packed up, loaded my dog into the new car my partner and I had bought a month earlier, which will be relevant later, and set off excitedly. Little did I know how dangerous this decision would turn out to be. I left around mid-morning with my dog in the back seat. Since I'd never driven this car before, I decided to fill the tank completely. It's always better to be safe than sorry, right? In hindsight, this might have been the key decision that saved us. As I drove deeper into the woods, I lost internet signal, and the map wouldn't reload. The landscape was an endless blur of gray and blue. The area I was heading to was popular among tourists, so I assumed it was safe. I didn't see anything online about it being closed, but as I ventured further, an eerie feeling washed over me, like the calm before a storm. Despite my growing paranoia, I tried to stay calm. By 2 p.m., it was already growing dark. I'd been driving for hours, only to discover that my destination and the main road behind it were closed for construction. I had to take a detour through winding back roads, and I was more lost than before. Frustrated, I pulled over on the only side road I had seen for miles to let my dog out. The road was rough, and I immediately regretted stopping. I prayed my tires would hold up on the jagged rocks. I parked the car and noticed a small viewpoint area on the opposite side of the road. Unlike other viewpoints I'd seen, this one had no clear entry or exit. It was a red flag, one of many that I ignored that day. As I approached the viewpoint, I saw a set of stairs leading down into the woods. The darkness made it look like a staircase into a black hole. Creeped out, I decided to head back to the car. That's when I noticed a small ATV hidden among the trees, and a man stepped out. He looked to be in his 50s, with a normal build, wearing a dark camo shirt, jeans, and clear glasses. His short hair looked like a buzz cut. He stayed at a distance, but my dog's reaction surprised me. She placed her paw on my foot and stood completely still. My dog, not known for being protective, suddenly growled, a first for her. Her ears flattened. She didn't like this man. He spoke, matter of fact. "You're hiking alone and you're lost." It felt like a casual observation, but something about it sent a chill through me. How did he know I was lost? "You parked your new car in that direction. You're from X city. Your car doesn't have much gas left," he continued, making statements, not asking questions. His tone was calm, like he'd done this before. Panic set in as I realized he must have been following me. My heart raced. He turned and went back to his ATV, then parked it directly in front of me, blocking my path. Time seemed to slow. My options flashed in my mind. Option 1, go down the trail, into the woods, an instant no-go. Option 2, make a run for the car. As he sat there, he asked, "Can I pet your dog?" I was stunned. Who would try to pet a growling dog? I responded, "I don't think my dog likes you very much." What a dumb thing to say, I thought. There was an awkward silence before he spoke again. "Dogs have good instincts. Anyway, do you mind if I video call my family? It's a great view." This was the first time he'd asked a question. I immediately realized something was off. There was no cell service here, and his ATV blocked my exit. The only view was me. That gut feeling hit me hard. I might not make it out of here. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew dirt into his glasses, and in that moment, I sprinted for my car. I opened the door, shoved my dog inside, and slammed the door just as the man lunged for the leash. I floored the gas pedal and sped down the winding road. On my way out, I reported the incident to a park deputy. They investigated, but no evidence was found. Since then, I haven't hiked alone or anywhere near that region. But the creep factor didn't end there. Years later, I still can't pinpoint the exact location of that day on the map. I even checked my car's stored camera footage. Nothing. The only photo I have from that trip was from a nearby stop, but when I tried to get directions, Google Maps couldn't find any route to that spot. Even worse, the trail near where I stopped had been closed due to forest fires. I hope I never cross paths with that man again. Edit. I understand people find my experience to be fake. First, I didn't want to reveal my location, but I think giving some details would help clarify things. I live in one of the hottest cities in the US. The summers here are over 100 degrees from May to September. But if you drive a couple of hours north of my city, the temperature difference is substantial. I'm not joking. 3 hours north and it's 70 degrees instead of 100 plus. It's also cooler in the mountains. Now my writing is over the top, I can see that. English isn't my first language. I can speak fluently, but writing is still a challenge. That doesn't mean what happened to me was fake. What happened that day 3 years ago still lives with me today. I can't solo hike now. I didn't leave my house for months. I didn't drive anywhere in our new car. I changed the license plate out of fear of being tracked. After reporting it, no one found anything, and I was never contacted about it again. I hope that gives some clarity. I didn't sleep Airbnb because I thought I might get murdered. Don't take this too seriously. I'm sure there's a logical explanation for this, but I'm glad I didn't take the chance. Super creepy, nevertheless. About 2 weeks ago, I booked an Airbnb in another country. I was going there for a concert. The room was cheap, so I knew I wasn't going to stay in a 5-star hotel, but it was only for one night, so I didn't mind as long as I had a bed. To start off, it already wasn't a great trip, because my data roaming apparently didn't work in that country at all. I logged into a cafe Wi-Fi and planned my route in advance as best as I could. Managed to be at the house in time, rang the only bell, and waited. Nobody came out. I repeatedly rang and waited for 5 minutes. I noticed the door had a slot for mail and looked through it. I was shocked to see an entrance that looked like an abandoned barn. A super dusty couch right in front of the door, pieces of furniture covered in cloth, very dirty and extremely old. I usually love old houses, but that just did not look like a house that was in use or prepared for guests at all. I wondered if I was at the wrong house and what to do now, as a super old, unwashed-looking guy walked towards the door from the street. I asked him if he knew where the Airbnb was. He mumbled something which I interpreted as positive, so I asked him if he was Tim, my host. He said yes and opened the door for me. Well, I already described the entrance. The centerpiece was definitely the super old creaky staircase that led to the upper part of the house. I followed him upstairs. He was heaving and coughing and stinking of cigarettes, which wasn't exactly pleasant, but all right. The second floor was also abandoned looking, super dark, with clustered furniture hung with cloth and randomly thrown together, and a super creepy curtain that I couldn't catch a glimpse behind. Another stair up, and we were in my hallway, which was honestly the worst one. Cracks in the walls, old rural paintings and crosses hung up next to them. It seriously looked like the set of a horror movie. I usually don't have problem with decor like that. I'm a goth, so anything darkly inclined is my jam. But everything looked so badly taken care of, so I got major creepo vibes from this house. He showed me the bathroom, which had a huge hole missing in the bathtub tiling and the wall. Everything looked super dirty. He showed me to my bedroom, which was honestly okay. There were just a lot of creepy dolls on the shelves that threw me off. But the bed seemed fine. I asked him if they had Wi-Fi and he said no, which sucked. I really hoped they would have, because that meant I would have no way to communicate in there. I also asked him when checkout was the next day. He said, "It doesn't matter." Okay? He then dragged himself up to the 4th story, which was in complete pitch black darkness, so that gave me very weird vibes. I definitely didn't want to get into this shower, so I just quickly changed and charged my phone. When I went to the bathroom, I realized that I didn't even notice the creepiest part. There were no locks at all. Not for the bathroom, not for the toilet, and not for my room, which freaked me the fuck out. I also noticed that there were so many half-used items that someone, looked like the guest before me, had left there, like shower gels, toothbrushes, and toothpaste. A random lash curler just lay abandoned on the shelf. Not like a "here you go" for your use in case you forgot yours way, but it just looked like someone left it and nobody bothered to clean it away. I already made up my mind that I would definitely not stay the night in this house. My mind was just spinning scenarios. What if all these products were left by the people before me? And why did nobody leave horrendous reviews? Because they got murdered? I was super spooked. I seriously debated if I should take all my shit to the concert because it did not feel safe in the slightest. But my back was really hurting from my heavy backpack, so I just took my essentials and left the room as soon as I could. Not without sliding a folded paper under the door so I'd see if someone tried to open it in my absence. When I was coming down the staircase, I heard someone turning a key in the front door. I was a bit confused, but in the advert it said that a couple lived there, so I expected to see the wife/girlfriend of the guy I already met. Instead, a middle-aged man enters and says, "Hey, I'm Tim." All I could think of, then who the fuck is the other guy? I was shitting myself inside, but had brief small talk with him, and finally left the house. I was shook. Luckily, I made it in time to the venue, and the concert was worth it. Afterwards, I was so tired that I knew I couldn't stay awake for the whole night, so I checked into a hostel. That was also not perfectly clean, but at least they had Wi-Fi, a proper shower, and door had a fucking lock. The next day, I got thrown out at 10 a.m., so I made my way to get the rest of my stuff. I indicate why, but I checked the mail slot again and jumped back. The old guy was just snoring on the couch directly in front of the entrance door. I tried my best not to wake him up and sneaked into my room to get my shit. The door hadn't been opened, thank God, and I finally left this godforsaken place. I don't know if I overreacted, but honestly, from the 2 Tims to the missing locks and a checkout that didn't matter, if I assumed the worst, this would have been the perfect setup to assault or murder someone. Best case scenario, nothing would have happened, but I probably would have had panic attacks all night. Usually I love solo traveling, but this was just too much. I was too sleepy to care. Germany, 2014. After 2 years of stagnation, I decided to do something with my life, and despite my parents' opinion, I moved out. I also decided to continue my education, but in order to do so without help, I had to start 2 jobs. That's how I ended up in the basement with my roommate Ryan, fake name. The whole house belonged to his parents and had 2 floors plus a basement. The second floor was occupied by an older couple, the first by a woman whom I saw twice during my whole stay. The ground floor was empty. Honestly, living there was awful. Even without the older couple fighting, our ceiling was constantly leaking and the windows were in a place where people could access them from the street. They would often stare at what we were doing. We had drunk people peeing on our windows, or kids trying to take something off the windowsill or get in. Summer was a nightmare. But after 2 or 3 months, I was so tired that I stopped caring. You want to watch me undress in my own room? Fine. Another colony of spiders in our bathroom? Well, I guess my arachnophobia is cured. Time for a bath. Ryan taking my stuff without asking? Who cares? 2 years later, it's 2014. It's August, and I'm sleep deprived. But I finally have a week off. No studies, no work, no responsibilities, just some good rest. So I lie in bed and sleep all day. But around 4 p.m., I start hearing sounds. Lots of shuffling, slamming doors, and quick footsteps. Before I was fully awake, the door to my room opened. Someone grabbed me and started shaking me, saying, "Get up." Okay. I opened my eyes. My first and only thought, Ryan. This man looked nothing like him. Ryan had long black hair, was very thin, and always wore a green hoodie. This man was much taller, more muscular, and bald. But yeah, my brain saw all those differences and still thought, Ryan. I remember saying, "What? Can't you see I'm trying to rest?" And then I turned on my left side. Ryan didn't leave though. He tugged me again, still saying, "Get up." I said, "No way," and then, "I don't care what you did this time, get out." Though it was probably a lot less coherent and understandable. Well, Ryan left and I heard him moving around our house for a while and making noise. Then I fell asleep. 2 hours later, Ryan wakes me up again. He's panicked and basically asks if I'm fine. I'm like, "What now?" Our kitchen and Ryan's room were destroyed. We also lost our laptops, my phone, Ryan's games and manga, some food from fridge, and for some reason, my notebooks and a cheap, small Bulbasaur figurine I kept on my night table. After this, police quickly arrived, and thanks to the neighbors and their camera, we had footage of a tall, bald man entering our property after 3 p.m., spending a while hanging around front and then going to the back. The police were not happy to hear my part of story. They looked at me as if they were wondering how I managed to survive so many years. Ryan's parents were even less impressed. They spent days complaining about me and making up a story about how I should have fought and protect house. My parents tried again to convince me to move back. When, after 3 weeks, the situation only became more irritating, I packed my bags and actually did it. After that, I had a few conversations with police, but as far as I know, the burglar was never found.